All right, gang, this is going to be fun. My guest today is Antonio Neves. Among many things, one being one of my great friends, Antonio is an expert, and I don't throw that word around lightly, on career success. He's also an internationally recognized speaker, coach, and author. You can read Antonio's unique and powerful career advice in places like Inc.com, Entrepreneur.com, TheMuse.com, just to name a few. Plus, his two most recent books are what I would call a 1-2 punch in raw career wisdom. One was 50 Ways to Excel in Your First Job. The other, 50 Things Every College Student Should Know. These were written for people just getting started, but even for those that are 20 years in, still great stuff to remind yourself of. Antonio is also an award-winning journalist. He worked in television, worked in the television industry for 10 years in New York City as a business correspondent, host, and producer with top networks like NBC, PBS, BET Network, and Nickelodeon. He also earned his master's degree. He's no schlep here. Earned his master's degree from Columbia University and now lives with his beautiful family in Los Angeles, California. He has been on Dream Think Do twice, episode 4 and 77. So you're going to want to go back and check those out. And as I said before, he's one of my favorite people on the planet. So I'm particularly stoked to have him back. Let's do this. Antonio, welcome to Dream Think Do, brother.
Mitch Matthews, it's an honor to be back for. I can't believe it's a third time. I hope that's the record. I hope no one has more than
that is there's just one other person that's been on this many times. So
okay,
how about that?
So next week, let's do another one.
Exactly. That's how you are. Always competing. Well, and I would also say there is another first that we did our first episode way back. I think it was in the 70s or the 80s or whatever 04 was, or 04. But after that, we didn't know each other before that episode.
We didn't, and a lot transpired since then.
A lot transpired because then we wound up speaking.
Yeah.
We wound up speaking at the same conference. 5 months after that?
Yeah.
Really connected there, and then I married you.
You ended up marrying my wife and I, which is wild, and it's just amazing.
Let's back up just so we're clear. I facilitated your wedding. Right.
You facilitated our wedding. Thank you.
Which was one of the most beautiful events I've ever seen in my life, let alone gotten to be a part of.
Yeah, for me, that's just a reminder. Sometimes you meet someone in very, basic situations. It could be a podcast recording. It could be on a plane having a conversation. And you never know where that relationship is going to take you. And hopefully if you're open to it going there, because I know a lot of people, we're resistant sometimes to meeting new people, especially as we get older, to developing new relationships. And I was blown away by you, by what you were doing, etc. And when my wife and I are thinking about who would we like to marry us, I said, there's a guy that I know, and I don't know him really, really, really well right now. Yeah. But something tells me in my heart that A, he would love to do it, but second, he would be the perfect person. And we were just really honored that you agreed to do it.
Oh my gosh, it was so cool. And what a great way to get to know you guys even better is to say, hey, by the way, I'm going to be standing within 2 feet of you on one of the most important days of your life. So yeah, let's do this.
We really appreciate it, man. I'm glad we know each other.
I loved it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So man, we could go 1,000 different directions, but you recently, you wrote an article that was all about the mid-career slump. And it just stood out to me. I loved it, especially because Dream Think Doers, people who are listening to Dream Think Do are rock stars. They're successful, they're working hard, they're killing it. But, successful people also have that mid-career slump, right? And the mid-career could be 2 years into your career or 30 years into your career, right? And I loved your approach to this because it wasn't, to that person who's never rocked it. It was you assumed this person was successful. They just need a little boost. Why go after that subject though? Why did that subject call to you?
Yeah, the mid-career slump talked to me, Mitch, because I was experiencing it myself. As you mentioned in the intro, you mentioned some companies. You mentioned the BET, you mentioned Nickelodeon, you mentioned MTV. I'm here in my early 40s right now. When you say that, Mitch, that seems like another lifetime ago. Yeah. I can barely remember that, guys. I'm sure when you think about your career earlier in the sales and pharmaceutical field,
right?
It seems like a different life. Those are different chapters. And I think what so many professionals do is we go through this journey of our career. And what happens early on in our career, we have a lot of growth in different things that happen. You start as an assistant, then you become a coordinator, then you become a manager, then if you're lucky, you become a director, then maybe a senior director or VP. All this growth, it happens in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
But then all that kind of growth kind of stops and getting those types of rewards and different types of accolades. I had reached a point in my career, Mitch, where on paper, everything looked right. If you
Yeah.
look at my LinkedIn profile, things look good. You look at my resume, look good. Go to social media, things are cool. But as I was traveling across the country doing the work that I do now as a speaker and author, I was telling my experience with this and I was talking to people about their experience with it. They're like, hey, man, everything on paper is good. The world thinks I'm killing it, but something inside just feels off. And
Yep.
the thing is this, Mitch, as you know, a lot of people aren't going to tell you this because
Right.
they feel guilty. Like, who are you to complain? Look at Mr.
Right.
Good job title, Mrs. makes a good money, family over there with the house with the garage and all that. Who are you to complain? There are really people out there that are struggling.
Yep.
So people don't talk about this, the mid-career slump. But you can be in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, or 50s and experience this. And this is what I experienced head on. Just to sum it up, Mitch, I reached a point in my career where I had so much growth and so many good things happening that I kind of felt like a, a, a airplane that's barreling down the runway at
Yeah.
full speed, amazing gear. But for some reason, with all the data, all the experience, it just was no longer taking off. It was
Yeah.
blazing fast, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but it was no longer taking off. And so many other people across the country have told me and clients that they experienced the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I think that's what I loved about your piece too, is that, and your writing always is just raw and authentic and packed with wisdom. But it's one of those things where this really was written to that successful person. And to your point, a lot of people can be feeling this slump, but the rest of the world maybe be surprised that they're feeling that way. But like, I think it sets in, we start to feel it way before it actually has that ripple effect on our outward performance, but it sure has an impact on our ability to engage, our ability to feel fulfilled, satisfied, feel like we're going somewhere, all of that. So let's dissect this though. Let's get people set up to say, okay, is this something I've been feeling? All that. I'm guessing that some people are already listening, going, oh yeah, nailed me. I'm in. Right. But I know you also said, hey, there's some signs to this because it can be subtle, right? Like, sometimes it'd be easy to misdiagnose this. So what would you say are some of those signs that people need to be looking for if they might in fact be in a mid-career slump?
Yeah, there are a variety of things that I referenced in the article, but one that I don't reference in the article is something that you'll appreciate is really you've kind of stopped dreaming.
Mm,
You've stopped activating that muscle. In many ways, I've experienced that firsthand. We can get to a point in life where we kind of end up on a conveyor belt. You
yeah.
do what you're supposed to do. You get your education, you get a good job, you get married, you have kids. It's a conveyor belt. And sometimes we get on a conveyor belt we don't even want to be on, but that's a
Yeah.
whole other conversation based on society and accomplishing sometimes other people's dreams. But we have stopped dreaming and we're living someone else's. Many times when we stop dreaming, what I found that means is that we stopped being active in our life. We stopped leaning forward. We started being passive and reactive.
Yeah.
In many ways, just letting the universe guide us where it wants to guide us versus us having an actual say in our life. And kind of like being on cruise control. Many of us forget that we're powerful machines, but
Right.
but sometimes it's as if we're a Maserati, but we're driving a Maserati 35 miles per hour.
Right.
We weren't A Maserati is not built to go 35 miles per
That's
hour.
right.
Which, by the way, Mitch, it's so much fun to be in LA and you see some Lamborghini blaze by you, but then you end up at the stoplight right next to each other. And you're like, hey, look at me in my Honda minivan, and we're in the same place. That Lamborghini's meant for the open road, not
That's
LA
right. How
congestion.
are you doing
Uh,
with that?
yeah,
Exactly.
I shouldn't feel good about that, but it makes me
I'm with
feel
you. I'm
amazing.
with
Uh,
you.
so some signs
Yeah.
that you may be in a bit of a slump, regardless of your age. One, when you started that job, when you were so pumped up, you were so excited when you got hired, when you got that phone call, you told your family and friends, and you started off, man, doing exceptional work. You
Right.
started doing great work. You started going over and above the expectations of you. But then over the years, something has happened. You started settling in a little bit, and you
Hmm.
started, instead of doing great work, you started doing good enough work.
Mm-hmm.
Not the work that's going to raise any flags and get you fired. You're doing what you're supposed to get paid, but you're not doing what you used to. It's kind of like when you start a new job, Mitch, and typically week 2 of a new job, some guy named Bob walks in with a mug of coffee and he says, "Are you settled in yet?" Uh, and you're like, "Hey, you got a lot to learn, Bob." But my hope is that we never settle
Right.
and we continue contributing on a regular basis, and you can get back to doing great work as opposed to good enough work. Another way to look at this, Mitch, is the idea, man, of getting a promotion, which used to be really exciting for you earlier
Yeah.
in your career. Right
Yep.
now, you're like, you know what? I don't know if I want that promotion. Those are new expectations. Those are new responsibilities. More is going to be expected of me than I want to give. There are 8 new episodes of XYZ show on Netflix. That promotion is going to get in the way
Right.
of me watching that. So those promotions we used to be fired up about. We're like, you know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
A third way to look at this mission, there's just a couple more after this, is when we started that job or we started our career, when we were fired up, there was a point when we were really fired up to build relationships. Forget networking, just really build relationships. That meant maybe going to happy hour with your colleagues. That meant scheduling informational meetings. That meant just that new person comes, you become Bob and say, "Hey, how's everything going?" But at some
Right.
point, we stopped doing that, and that seemed a little bit more like a responsibility as opposed to something positive to do. So you stop building relationships. The last two I'll share, Mitch, and these are a lot, but I think people will probably connect to these, is you stop taking action on your ideas. What I
Mm.
find, Mitch, as I go across the country and speak to so many amazing men and women in so many amazing organizations, I can tell whoever's listening or watching this right now, whatever problem you are encountering right now, whatever challenge you have, odds are you have the answer to it. You just aren't acting on it.
Mm.
I think some of the best ideas for individuals and organizations, you know where they are? They're gathering dust in a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best ideas that could transform yourself or an organization are gathering cyber dust on a hard drive
Yeah.
because we're not taking action on them. We used to, if we had an idea, we were fired up, we would just do it. And then we just share this idea with the team, with our boss, with our wife, our spouse, whoever. But that has stopped.
Mm.
And last but not least, something that you and I know is critically important. And by the way, all these things I'm talking about, been there, done that. This isn't me
Right.
just talking about other people. I've experienced this. The last thing is we stop learning. Our life, the foundation of our life is built on ongoing learning from grade school to middle school to high school to university, if you will.
Yep.
Unfortunately, a lot of companies nowadays don't have learning and development programs like they once did. As you know, the great thing is there are so many amazing resources out there, so many free resources. Listening to a podcast like this is learning. Taking a free
Right.
class from our friend Chase Jarvis, his outlet Creative Live.
Right.
That's learning. But somewhere we've become static and we have stopped learning, and that means we are wilting. It's kind of like a muscle and atrophy is setting into our lives, which leads to the slump, which
Yeah.
leads to feeling a little bit empty, which leads to hitting snooze, which leads to feeling lethargic. So those are some of the signs that if folks are listening, they're like, whoa, maybe I'm in a little bit of a funk. You can
Exactly.
call it
I
slump
may
or you can
not
say
be
funk.
all of them, but I got 3 of the 5, or I got 4 of the 5. Absolutely. And I think it's so true. And I think it's also, I think to your point, people, especially dream think doers, they don't wake up this morning and go, you know what? Today's a day for my slump. Right? Like I am picking it, and today is the day, right?
Right.
It's going to be more of those. Each one of these things happens gradually, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It's not just one event. It's a combination of things that all start to creep in, set in, especially if we've already got busy schedules, lots of responsibilities, maybe a family, all those things. So, what I also appreciated about the wisdom. So, one, I appreciate you not just saying those people have it, those people over there have it. Let's fix them. It's like, and that's what I love about your writing every time, and you speak that the same way. It's like, hey, gang, I'm talking about this because I need it, right? And that's half the time when I'm doing podcast episodes. It's because I need that information, right? So this is awesome. I so appreciate your transparency on that. But I also appreciate that as you started to think through, okay, these are some of the signs, but fixing it, in true Antonio wisdom, is not just I wake up the next morning, flip the switch, and everything's different, everything's better. It's a series of small steps, right? And I know you did a great job of laying out some strategies. If somebody, as they heard you walk through those things, those signs, those symptoms going, maybe more me than I thought, right? What are some of those things that you suggest working your way out of that mid-career slump?
Yeah, well, first, let me preface it by saying you mentioned something really important. A lot of people listening to this may have a lot of responsibilities. They
Yeah,
have mortgages, they have families, they have kids. They maybe they don't have the free time they had when they were 23 years old. And
right.
I that's my life as well with toddler twins and a wife, etc.
Yeah,
As someone told me a long time ago, you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything. So this
yeah,
is the point in life where you start to choose, you start to focus on the key things that you can do because you can't do everything. One of
yep.
the things you can do to break out of this funk, to break out of this slump, is something I already mentioned earlier, and that's to start learning again.
Mm,
I invite you to find a way to create a classroom for yourself again. I don't
yeah,
care if that's a regimen of podcast listening that you do on the way to work. As Zig Ziglar used to say, that car is your classroom. That's a
mm,
movable classroom.
yeah,
There are so many amazing outlets like Creative Live that I mentioned earlier where you can go take free courses on any subject that you can dream up in your brain.
yeah,
Another thing, I mean, you can start learning a foreign language right here on this phone. There
right.
are apps that give you the opportunity to do that. So my continuing education courses at local universities or colleges, etc.
Yep.
Heck, if you're interested in being a coach, I know someone you can talk to right now. His name is Mitch Matthews. So the
Right on.
opportunities to learn are endless. But what I want to do is I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want to say you need to enroll in and do 3 hours every single night. Sometimes that's just a matter of 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day to give yourself permission, that time to learn again, to
Yep.
read that book, etc. So a lot of people have stopped learning. I want to give you permission to do that, even if it's just 15 minutes a day.
Right.
The second thing,
Well, let's talk about that for just a second,
sure.
because I think that is so important. Just the starting learning again, and to your point, I think when we start in a career, it's oftentimes we're having to learn a number of things because we're needing to learn our organization, we're needing to learn about the industry, we're needing to learn about our position. There's just a lot of things we have to learn, and in some ways, as we progress, right, needing to learn less almost feels like a rite of passage. Like,
Mhm.
hey, I have arrived. I don't need to, but I think you're right. We are learning beings. So when we start to do that, it was your point exactly. That learning muscle starts to atrophy and we start to lose that. But then I think to your point, learning so often then we convince ourselves like, wait, I don't have time for an MBA course, or I don't have time for a full PhD or whatever that might be. But we live in an era that is amazing in regards to what we can do in 15 minutes. Like, I don't know about you, but I love indoor plumbing. I love air conditioning. And I love the internet, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
incredible. And to your point, like being able to go to Creative Live, or like I did a thing for a while where I once a week, I did on Fridays, I'd try to do it where I'd have lunch with Ted. And I just put it out to say, all right, hit me up with different TED Talks. I put it out on social, like, hit me up with your favorite TED Talks. And every Friday I'm going to do lunch with Ted where I'm going to watch a TED Talk. And it was interesting. Like, that was for me just one of those small things I'd look forward to. And it seems so simple, but it's like those small things would allow the other things to start. And I would kind of catch myself being more open to new ideas and all that stuff, and it can be real gradual. So I
absolutely. And
love the
as you know,
simplicity of that.
breakthroughs come in small steps. I think when it comes with learning
Yeah.
or anything, it works like compound interest. The
Yeah.
more you do it, it just builds. It's like a big snowball effect.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something interesting. It's always fun for me to talk to someone. Uh, and sometimes you talk to certain people and you can like say, oh, that person stopped learning in 2007. Like you, you can tell when
Clock
they
it. Yeah.
stop. Yeah,
Clock it. It's like the number of rings on a tree. You're like, yep, it's over.
that's when he or she stopped learning, getting. And listen, we're speakers. We're the speakers industry, so we go give
Right.
talks and we see keynotes where they're
Yeah.
still using data from 5 years ago.
Yep. Yep.
That's just unacceptable. We have that opportunity to continue to learn in small increments. I mean, just 10 minutes a day is 70 minutes over the course of a week. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just 10 minutes. And you have, Antonio, I don't have 10 minutes. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You have 10 minutes in your vehicle. You have 10 minutes if you stay off social media. You have 20 minutes if you get up 20 minutes earlier.
Right.
Let me tell you something I don't want to do. I didn't want to wake up at 4:40 a.m. today. I did not want to, but you know
Yeah.
what? I had to get that hour 40 in before my kids got up. And
That's right.
I'm not a hero, by the way. I'm doing what I have to do.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially because your wife's on the road this week too, right? She's traveling internationally this week. So you're
Yeah.
extra dad duty there. So
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. So starting to learn again is what I love about that is completely within our control, right? That one of the other elements of that is if you've got a little bit of internet and like you said, 10 minutes a day, just for the time where Netflix is buffering, you can find 10 minutes, right? So it's that I love that that's a great place to start. What's the next thing that you really suggest people, especially if they're wanting to work those muscles again?
Yeah, I
And
love the lunch with
beat the
Ted, by
slump?
the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next one is something really important, and this really is backed up by positive psychology, and that
Yeah.
is finish something. Right now, for everyone watching and listening, I want you to think too, when's the last time you finished something? But
Mm,
with this caveat, when is the last time you finished something for you?
mm,
You finish stuff for everyone, for
yeah.
your kids, maybe for your boss, your company, etc. But I invite you to find a way to finish something for you. And when I say finish something for you, that could be as simple as hitting publish on that blog post.
Mm-hmm.
That means that you actually wrote something, had a beginning, middle, and end, and then you delivered it by hitting publish.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a home improvement project that you're really fired up about.
Yeah.
That is when you get that done, you finish something. Maybe you like, I don't know, home brewing beer or something like that, and you want to try it out and you buy that kit. So I want to make sure when I say finish stuff, I'm not talking about finishing the great next novel.
Yeah.
It could be something very simple, a home improvement project, hitting publish on a blog, fixing that doggone light that's been hanging in your garage for
Yeah.
too long and you're tired of looking at it. So we can go big and small with finish something, but let me tell you something, Mitch. When I talk to people, clients, when they regularly finish something, it gives them a sense of accomplishment.
Yep.
It feels good to have something done, to really be able to check something off of their list. And because we've gotten to this rote kind of day to day behavior of being reactive on cruise control, we have stopped finishing things for ourselves.
I think that's huge. And especially because we got a lot of leaders that listen to the podcast as well. And I know in talking with them, oftentimes, they aspired to be a leader. They aspired to have a team. But the challenge with that is, to your point exactly, so often there are things that are getting done, but because you're leading the team, it's very rare that it feels like you accomplish that task, right? Like you're a part of it, but so much just feels nebulous. It feels, it's collaborative, all that stuff. It's all important, but actually having that sense of tangible accomplishment, sometimes it feels like it's months, if not years, since something's actually been completed. So to go in with intentionality, and I love your point of, a small project. It doesn't have to be completely remodel your kitchen. I mean, it can be, that's great, but to be able to say, how do you break that down? Or how do you change that one light? Or how do you learn something new? Like, and to have it, it can be career related, but sometimes to bust yourself out of something like a slump, doing something completely different can be so good. It's so powerful. So I think that's a huge, and not only starting it, but actually getting to a point where you could say, hey, that's finished. I don't know about you, but I love mowing the lawn for that reason. Like that is one of the few tasks where you can say, I started A, and when I hit B, it means it's done, right? Like, oh, it's so powerful. So I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
so many people have stopped doing that, and it could be a hobby, it can be an activity. A great indicator you're not finishing things, if on your nightstand you have if you have like 6 books sitting on your nightstand, get rid of 5 of them and just have one on there so you
Okay,
can
guys,
finish
we're
it.
going to wrap up this interview. Antonio just totally pushed all my buttons, so this interview's done. No,
Mitch,
I'm
you
with
have
you,
six
man. It's
books.
so true. It's like, okay, I've got 4 different books, and yeah, it's like, just get one done. Just get one
All our
done.
tw- all listen, and we probably again, you're achievers, so you probably have a lot of projects right now. Some are 40% complete,
Right.
some are 60% complete, some are 85% complete. They just need 3 dedicated hours of your time or less. So I know the listeners right now they're thinking about some things like, oh,
Yeah.
That's close to being finished. So instead of starting that new thing, that new shining object that's grabbing your attention, finish that one, then move on to the next. Because people
Yep.
right now, their brain's activated. They know exactly what they want to finish.
Exactly. They might be there's a little corner of their head. They're like, "Shut up, Antonio!" But they're like, they know because it's you're just speaking the truth. I love it. All right, well let's go to this third one too, because I know when I saw that, I'm like, God, so true. So talk us through the third.
The third way to bust out of a slump or to get out of a funk, I think a great way to illustrate this is when I'm in town. I travel a lot, but when I'm in town every Thursday at 7 a.m., I meet with a group of guys. It could
Yep.
be from 5 to 6 people, and we call it Man Morning.
Nice.
This is a group where we go on a very light hike, Mitch, for an hour from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. During this walk, what we do is we talk about life, business, marriage, relationships, and beyond. And let me tell
Yeah.
you something that community has brought so much value to me to remember that whatever I'm experiencing, whatever funk I'm in, whatever slump I'm in, I am not the first person to experience that.
Right.
Sometimes we get in these slumps, we get in these funks, we isolate, we withdraw from family, friends, and community when what we should do is reach out to them for support,
Yep.
for guidance. The great thing about meeting with people in person is that people will hold you accountable. They're going to be real. It can't be the "I'm crazy busy, can't see" the social media reply.
Right.
They know when you're not feeling great about something or if you're struggling.
Yep.
For me, that group is really intentional, and I call these men I hang out with, I call them allies because they're
Yeah.
people that I've talked about previously on your podcast. They encourage you, they support you, they challenge you, and they hold you accountable. The big thing about allies, if you want to know if they're allies or thieves, is allies call you up. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are going to call you out. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's what's not working. Allies call you up to be the best version of yourself. Now, you may not be able to, once a week on at 7 a.m. on a Thursday, meet with people for a hike, but I can promise you right now, there is community around you, whether that's through your church group, men's groups or women's groups at churches. And by the way, it doesn't need to be just one gender. It can be mixed gender as well. These can be sports leagues. These can
Yep.
be meetings you have with friends. Just a backstory, the reason why we meet for hikes at 7 a.m., Mitch, is because previously the same group, we would meet for cocktails in the evening.
Mm.
And we just found the conversations, what we got out of it was two different things. If you meet at 7 in the evening or
Yep.
7 in the morning, what a brilliant way to start the day. So right now in your community, there are so many opportunities through meetups, through again church groups and beyond to find these men and women to support you and encourage you. And now
Yeah.
the big thing with that is I found 9 times, 10 times out of 10, sometimes when we support others,
Yeah.
we support ourselves. We
Yep.
help ourselves. Our biggest breakthroughs can come when we're actually supporting someone else. So if you are going through a funk or you're in a bit of a slump, the last thing I want you to do is retreat and say, "I'm figuring it out." No,
Yeah.
figure it out with your community, with your
Yeah.
friends. People are willing to help you, and you must be willing to ask for that help.
Yeah, that's huge. I love that. And I love your juxtaposition of allies versus thieves, because I think we all probably have a couple thieves in our lives where, the thieves are those that what did you say? They call you down or call you out, but allies call you up. And it's so true. It's that whole thing of they're going to help you elevate. Now, some people might be listening and go, "But I don't have those people." It's like my recommendation to your point is that if you don't have those people, be that person to somebody else, right? Like be that person that's encouraging, be that person that's reaching out to say, "Hey, you want to get together? Let's meet." All of those things. It's huge. And that's, it's fun when we both travel, obviously, but when you're in town, I always try to track you, or you always try to track me down. When I'm in town, I always try to track you down. And it's beautiful because some of these relationships can be a weekly relationship. Some of those relationships, maybe you can't meet all the time, but man, you make it a point to connect. All of that is just huge. So I love it. It's so powerful. All right. So, start learning again, finish something, surround yourself with allies. It's so good. This is gold. But I'm going to ask for more gold. I'm going to ask for that one last wisdom of the week. And we love to wrap these up by asking, like, what's that thought that keeps you going? Maybe it's a quote, maybe it's a piece of advice, and it could be on this front. But what's that one last thing we're going to send Dream Think Doers out with? As you think about that, I'm going to point people back to you. So we've been talking with Antonio Neves And you can go check out his website. I encourage you to do so, theantonioneves.com. We'll, of course, have all the links in this post. But you can also check out his books. As I mentioned, two of his most recent are 50 Ways to Excel at Your First Job and 50 Things Every College Student Should Know. Go grab those for people that are just getting started in their career. But tell you what, before you hand it off to anybody else, you're going to want to read it yourself. You'll be glad that you did. So, all right, Antonio, what's that last wisdom of the week we'll send people out with?
The last wisdom is first. I can't wait to share my new book with you that I'm working with. And guess what? It doesn't have 50 in the title, so it's going to be a lot of fun. That wisdom, which is very, I think, apropos of our conversation thus far, and I just got my $1 million word in of the day, apropos.
Yeah, I love it. I can't spell it, but I love it.
Neither can I. But for those people who are feeling stuck, those people that are in a bit of a funk, those people who are in a slump, I want to reinforce this notion right here. That is, not making a decision is making a decision. Not making a decision is making a decision. Sometimes we think when we're going through a challenging, tough time that if we don't make a decision, things will miraculously fix themselves on their own. But when you don't make a decision, you're telling the universe, you're telling the world that you don't care. What I'm going to invite everyone to do is to start making decisions. Even small decisions will get momentum going for you. If that small decision for you is some way to find a way to start learning again, that's a big decision. If your small decision today is to reignite that project that you've been working on that you want to finish, that is a decision. And lastly, you can make a decision to make that phone call today to that friend that you know is in your corner, that you missed, that will be so happy to pick up that phone call and make that call. So I just invite everyone to make a decision as opposed to waiting and the continuing to wait, because I don't want that rust to set in. I don't want that atrophy to set in on your life. And I want you to expand as opposed to what a lot of people do as they slowly get older, is they contract. We've seen that person who, as they get older, they slowly become this person. My hope is that with those decisions, it's going to allow you to expand. And that's the wisdom right there.
Boom, mic drop. I love it. It's so true. And it's one of those things that I love what we're talking about here, because again, the slump is a slow creep, right? Like it comes in slowly. But the decision to break out of it can happen quickly, but we have to do it, right? And it would be one thing to listen to this conversation and go, oh, that's me. Oh, I so need to do it. And then go, I'm going to do that next week. Yep. Or I'm going to get around to that next month. I've got more time after the holidays, whatever it is, to be able to say, all right, that small thing, I'm doing it. I'm going to start. And I so agree with you. I love it, man. Well, Antonio, keep spreading the wisdom, brother. And we're having you back on when the new book comes out. I cannot wait to promote the shiznits out of that.
Can't wait, Mitch. Thanks for having me. It's the third time is a charm, and I got to get number 4 on there soon. So
That's right. Set the new record. Boom. I love it. Thanks, brother.